So thank you for joining us today for what to expect when we're inspecting. And thank you for taking the time. I know you're all super busy out there in this crazy real estate market that we're working in. I'm Kara Golden. I'm the Director of Marketing. Also from Tiger with us today is Sue Fasciani, my colleague in marketing, and also Joe DeLaurentis, our presenter here. He is a licensed home inspector for 26 years. He has his supervisory pest control license for the wood destroying insect. He's a member of ASHI. He's also a certified commercial building inspector. And he has a background in new construction and remodeling, so extensive knowledge to share with you today. As well, he runs and manages Tiger Home and Building Inspections and all of our staff. So a little bit about who we are as a company. If you're not familiar with us, we are a Connecticut family business. Joe and I are siblings, and our dad started the company in 1992. And we've grown throughout the state of Connecticut and into Westchester and Putnam counties in New York, as well as the bordering towns in Massachusetts and Rhode Island, is all the different areas we work in. We have different inspectors that live and work in their local areas, 22 inspectors total. So again, commercial and residential inspections. One of the features of Tiger is your wood destroying insect inspection is included free with all of your inspections. We also offer radon testing with continuous monitors, and our staff is certified for that. We'll talk a little bit more about that during this presentation. We offer well water testing, mold assessments, and testing as well. If you have a special property or a particular type of client, please talk to us about that. Some of the specialties our inspectors have. We have a HUD consultant on staff, specialists in antique home inspections, different types of new construction, equestrian properties, and more. So just a little bit about who we are. And we're going to move on to talk about what to expect when we're inspecting.
Thank you, Kara. Quick agenda items for everyone, and thank you all for logging in and attending, taking time out of your busy schedules. We are open to questions, of course, also stories, input, things from the field. It's beneficial, and that's the idea of a lot of these presentations, is to create collaboration and conversation. Just to quickly touch on COVID inspection procedures, things have obviously changed quite a bit over throughout this pandemic and such. So I'll touch on what we're doing currently. Then moving towards what is a home inspection. We'll use home inspection standards of practice. Both New York and Connecticut are very similar. Massachusetts differs some, so I won't get too far into that today. Referencing the Connecticut standards of practice predominantly. What does an inspection include through those standards of practice? How to prepare for home inspection. This is where will be some good takeaways for you as realtors, as well as things to refer to your buyers and or seller clients. And lastly, touching on selecting a home inspection company. How can you guide your clients to the appropriate service contractors? Regarding COVID, our mission throughout all of this has been to keep our clients, as well as you as realtors, the occupants of homes, and our inspectors and staff safe when in properties. Back when we were deemed essential in working through real estate, all of us needed to keep the sellers, happy with and satisfied with, I guess it's better than happy, people coming into their homes, right? So keeping up with the requirements of the past, but now it's more become who's comfortable with what. So we're running on a simple thing that we created called ask and comply, right? Every day is different. Is there a tenant in the house? Do they wish that you're wearing a mask or gloves? Is there an owner there who doesn't care if anyone wears their masks, and making sure that our clients feel the same. Limited attendees are preferred. So it's been said that the principal buyers and their agents should be present. That's changed a lot in the last 2 years. However, bringing multitudes of people to properties for inspections and or other events and such, may not be preferred by sellers or occupants. We still provide all of our staff with the necessary personal protection equipment. We've always worn shoe covers as guests in people's homes. We don't want to be the ones tracking through the house. You know, we're in dirty spaces, potentially outside, crawl spaces, et cetera. So we need to be mindful of what we track through. But now, in addition, when needed, we'll wear gloves and masks. We do sanitize our tools and ourselves. Of course, hand washing has become the norm for all of us. And then, you know, social distancing is important. We can be in tight spaces, clients crowding us around furnaces or electric panels. You know, we've all learned a lot about the proper social distancing throughout this. So just some awareness there for all of us on site. So getting to the meat of it, why do clients, whether it's buyers or sellers, need a home inspection? Obviously, the predominant use of the home inspection is on the buying side, but it's important that they have a full understanding of what they're buying, need to make an informed decision, right? That's really the key to all of this, and focusing on significantly deficient items. As an extension of that, the service has become over all the years that I've been doing it to include understanding how some of these systems work. And we at Tiger will kind of gauge each client throughout the inspection as to who's interested in knowing how does this furnace work, or what kind of furnace is it, versus, you know, give me a thumbs up, thumbs down, how old is it, and does it work? General maintenance practices are also very important to be included, because those, if left alone, may turn into a significantly deficient or more concerning item. And that also helps clients by dating some equipment with plans for need for future upgrade. There's always a conversation with that furnace that's operating beyond its expected service life, but it's still working, about planning for or making some upgrades. So remembering that top left bullet is the real key. We want clients to make an informed decision. From your end and our end, it's really important to set expectations with anybody going through a home inspection. No home is perfect. That doesn't mean that it's not the perfect house or the right house for that buyer. Once in a while, we get asked on site, you know, would you buy this house? And I think that question is not really a fair question. You know, historically, I used to buy investment properties that some people wouldn't set their foot in. You know, there's a lot of considerations. People may really want the neighborhood, so they'll sacrifice not having the two-car garage, whatever it may be. But understanding that these client expectations should be managed before the inspection. And our inspectors start with a simple introduction or driveway speech explaining, you know, this is an older home or this age home. We may find some things that need upgrades or potentially some problems we run into, but everything's fixable, and setting the expectations so people understand what's going to happen during the inspection process. By definition, from state licensing standards of practice and also the ASHI standard. ASHI is the American Society of Home Inspectors, and long before states were licensed, the ASHI standard of practice was kind of the Bible for inspections in our country, across the country. And many states worked their licensing off of those standards of practice. So it's a visual examination of readily accessible areas on the property. And some of that language is specific like that because we're not able to spend a week in the property and get to every nook and cranny. We certainly can't move all the furniture and the throw rugs and things. So that's the readily accessible areas. And the visual inspection portion, of course, is we're not taking things apart or tearing into walls and such on that part. And it's the conditions at the time of the inspection. And essentially, as we'll talk about, the components include top to bottom, you know, roof to foundation, as it may be. Those standards of practice are regulated by the Departments of Consumer Protection in your representative states. As I mentioned, licensing differs somewhat in how you get your license, how you maintain your license, but the general standards are pretty close across New York and Connecticut. The idea behind this, and it was a good one at first in the late 90s when licensing was spoken about in Connecticut. Some of us were fearful of it. We didn't want the playing field leveled too much. Those of us that provided more service and such. But it was very good in the end in creating a minimum uniform standard. Back in the day, we had huge contracts from some parties that were maybe a builder showing up for a half an hour on site and putting a couple notes on a piece of notebook paper for a fee, and an engineer spending a day on site and 2 weeks later issuing a full narrative report that was difficult to read. So this gave us the standards and the minimum requirements. Therefore, the consumers were able to know what to expect. The real estate community was able to know what to expect from a home inspection. These standards are required to be provided to the client either at the inspection or prior to the inspection for review. The emphasis there from the consumer protection departments is that people should be aware of what a home inspection is if that's what they're purchasing. They also include a code of ethics, very similar to your realtor code of ethics in the licensing standards. Getting back to what they expect of a licensed home inspector, to provide an educational experience, explain how systems work, identify controls and shutoffs when they're accessible. And of course, there's that second a bar there, identify significantly deficient components. That's the real key, and that's what the service was founded from back in the day. And then in addition to that, there's those maintenance items that should be spoken about as they could lead to something more significant. The simplest one that we run into on a daily basis is cleaning gutters, right? It seems like a routine maintenance task, and it certainly is, until you rewind to what was it, a little over a week ago when we had 3 to 5 inches of rain in varied areas. And now an overflowing gutter turns into a lot of water next to your foundation and potential seepage from that little crack that doesn't leak on a daily rainstorm. Getting into the systems of the home that we inspect, the structural system, of course, foundation, a key component, and any of you who may be working in the eastern part of Connecticut certainly know the issues with the crumbling foundation situation as it may be. That could be in the exterior where we'd look at foundations, basement spaces, crawl spaces under the building, and it may be slab construction as well. Framing, we do have a requirement to probe the structure. That could be anything from the old awl to a termite probe of sizable nature. But the idea behind that and the instruction from the state standards is to look for wood destroying insect or moisture damage in structural components. We also look at the framing in other utility type areas, attics, basements, and again, underfloor crawl spaces. We have to describe the methods used to access and inspect these areas. Again, the most important part here is let the consumer know or our client know what we couldn't get to. Is there an attic with a scuttle panel that's been painted and caulked closed? Well, we couldn't get to that attic space. We recommend someone coming and opening that up to gain access to it. You have to make the client aware of what you could or couldn't do. Exterior components, again, the primary purpose there is preventing water entry, keeping the weather out. So wall coverings, sidings, trims. You've probably all seen the term flashing. Any juncture of dissimilar materials, right? Windows to siding or trim, chimneys to roof, walls to roof, etc. Flashing is a key component of this weatherization. We do look at doors and windows from the outside. Of course, decks, porches, entry steps can have a variety of components to look at. The vegetation, grading, and drainage typically fall into more of a maintenance conversation. However, that grading and drainage could be a little bit more of a significant concern in some circumstances. Retaining walls, of course, roof covering, one of the top two between that and heating systems of clients' question or concerns. Chimneys, roof drainage would be the gutter system, and then skylights through. Moving on to plumbing, and an easy takeaway for you in preparing your clients, particularly your listing clients, for inspection day. Let them know that it's a bit of an invasive process, right? People are not used to someone being in their home, running all the plumbing fixtures as it may be, checking electrical fixtures throughout, and knowing who's in your house and how long they're going to be there and such. This is compounded now by people working from home. Someone's going to stay up in their home office while there's individuals in their house working. So just let them know that what might happen here. We're going to run the fixtures throughout the house, as I referenced, looking at the drainage system, waste system, vent systems that go along with plumbing. In the plumbing section, we also include the water heater, fuel storage and distribution. So potentially oil tanks, propane tanks, natural gas distribution. And then also falling in there is the sumps and the related pumps for basement drainage. Notice the capitalized word describe on the well components. In the standards, they do not require that the well components be inspected. The primary reason for that is a majority of well pumps are submersible pumps inside the well. Additionally, there's only a requirement for description of this equipment. So we will talk towards the later portion here about optional tests, and one of ours is a functional flow test, which does in fact inspect those well components. Electrical systems, outside components are important. How does the electricity get to the building? You may have heard conversation about main disconnects and overhead wires and such with exterior components as well as panels inside. We do take apart the cover on the electric panel. Again, another key preparation item on your listings. Make sure that that electric panel is accessible. Time and time again, in a finished basement, someone has finished the walls all around the panel, or potentially a panel in a finished main floor room is all caulked and painted around it. So easy enough for us to cut that caulking and paint, but it may not look perfect when we put it back together, and some sellers can be upset about that. So better that we can get to the panels easily, or they're aware that we're going to cut out the paint and caulking. We do check a representative number of fixtures, that's switches, outlets, ground fault circuit, or GFCIs, outlets. The representative portion of this is not intended for us to limit the number that we actually check. For instance, we're only required to check one per room by the standard. At Tiger, we will check all that we can get to without moving furniture and such. A vacant home, you would check every one. The idea here is that if there's something obstructing, there's no requirement to move and check every one. The goal behind checking these it seems redundant when we're checking every outlet that we can get to, but it's really looking for a bigger picture. One individual outlet that's miswired or maybe broken or missing a cover plate, not really a big deal. You start coming across 10 or 12 outlets, maybe in a specific area of the house, that are not wired right. It's a sign of a bigger concern, whether the circuit's not wired right or somebody changed the outlets in the room. Clearly an example of a need for an electrician to come check it out and make professional repairs. Smoke detectors and carbon monoxide detectors, also something that we will note what components are on site. Of course, heating and cooling systems are key components. Right side, top bullet, adequacy, distribution, and balance, things that are not required. These are, as the standards reference, technically exhaustive type things. So we are once in a while asked, is that air conditioner the right size for the building? Is the airflow appropriate at this end of the house? We can give some general answers, but each of these requires calculations. Most importantly, the size of equipment is a rather involved calculation, including insulation values, window values, numbers of windows, size of house and volume, et cetera. So not something that we would get involved in on a home inspection. We do look at central and through wall cooling systems, the vents, the flues, and the chimney connectors. Of course, any installed heating equipment. Interiors of chimneys are one thing that are considered beyond the scope of the standards by the states. So those are not readily accessible unless you can get to the top of the chimney, or you're able to look from the bottom of the chimney clean out or some such. Those are areas where we would look if there's signs of a problem. Again, you may see reference to consult with a chimney sweep to check the entire length of the internal flue liner and or determine scope of work to make repairs. Insulation is obviously viewed in utility spaces that we get into. Vapor barriers are also checked where we can get to the backside of insulation, the heat side. Ventilation is a key component and becoming ever more important in construction as we continue to tighten up homes. So did they add some form of mechanical ventilation when they put all the spray foam insulation in? Are the bathroom exhaust fans vented outside so as not to cause moisture and or mold concerns? So those are important components with ventilation. People have become ever more concerned with indoor air quality. So the moisture conversation is important. Interiors, again, remembering that we're looking for larger scope items when we're operating all of the windows. You know, it's not so much is there a lock hardware that's missing on an individual window. It's you know, are there a multitude of windows across the house that are original or older than all the others, or deficient in some way. Wall, ceilings, floors. We're not getting into cosmetic type issues, but more looking for things like water stains, structural settlement potentially, etc. I mentioned earlier in the plumbing section, we would run fixtures, plumbing fixtures throughout, and that includes the bathroom and the kitchen. And additionally, any tile work and related components there. One thing specifically in the Connecticut standards of practice is appliances are not required to be inspected. We have gone beyond those standards to include installed appliances. One of the appliances that's not considered installed is refrigeration equipment, and the other is laundry equipment. But we do cover the dishwasher, the cooking appliances, including microwave, as well as, again, important for ventilation, the vent hood or fan system. You get into fireplaces and stoves. Another key takeaway for preparing for listing potentially in the summer season, make sure that gas pilot lights are lit so that we can actually operate fireplaces. People love to see if the fireplace is going to work, and we don't want to leave any unnecessary reservation if a pilot light is out or we can't find the remote on site and things like that. So these are the simple things from a listing side that make the process a lot smoother for buyers without leaving little questions. Are they big concerns? Not at all, but they're just little questions that need to be asked or reconfirmed later. So we look at fireplaces, we open the fireplace, look up into the flue area, include the firebox itself, wood stoves in similar fashion, and pellet stoves, gas appliances, and then of course we don't ignite any of those that are not lit. We don't know why they were turned off, if there's any sort of safety concern. Kara mentioned in her introduction that we include a wood destroying insect inspection, less formally known as the termite inspection. That includes termites, carpenter ants, carpenter bees, as well as powder post beetles. We do carry a supervisory pest control license in Connecticut to conduct these inspections. All of our inspectors are carrying pesticide licenses to fill out the necessary paperwork. If you happen to be working with someone on a government loan, there may be a requirement to use the National Pest Control form, and therefore licensing is required. You will see some variation in the market. We have chosen to train our own staff and get the necessary licensing and paperwork to conduct this because it's always been my feeling that I don't want to rely upon subcontractors or other parties to be on site. I don't know what they're going to say or what time they're going to get there, et cetera. You'll also see additional fees added from some other service providers, whether it's doing it themselves or service contractor. Your clients should be aware of comments like, oh, I can't fill out the paperwork for you, but I'll look around for termites for you while I'm doing my home inspection. That kind of service is not going to suffice if there's ever a problem after the fact and termites are found, and or if there's paperwork required for lending. Good verbal and or reporting processes should include an explanation of what was found, obviously, and why it's important, and then direction as whether the client should plan to make a repair or other replacement type correction, and or maybe just monitor the item for future repairs. The maintenance type suggestions I spoke about multiple times are important to address to prevent things from getting worse. And in the standards, there's specific direction that when needed, an inspector can direct further evaluation. That's important if there's something that we can't see the extent of. Water dam, a lot of water damage, let's say on an exterior wall, how much damage is behind, how much is it going to cost to fix. That's important to get a contractor in, that has experience with pricing that type of work and determining potential scope of work on that. And sometimes that requires taking some things apart, which certainly can't be done at the home inspection. If possible, it's great for clients to attend and participate. It's a lot easier for us to keep things in perspective when we can physically show people what's going on. Oftentimes reading a home inspection report can be a bit scarier than actually seeing things on site. And frankly, it allows opportunity for us to discuss some of the positives that we're seeing as well when clients are in attendance. And these days, most of them want to attend because they didn't have a lot of time in the house before they were going to contract anyway. Question breaks. Anybody have any questions? Kara, anything in the chat?
Yeah, Joe, I'm actually going to handle the questions. There was a couple that came in, and I just want to remind everybody, please do feel free to put your questions in the chat. First thing was, is a septic inspection required in New York and Connecticut?
No, it's not required, but certainly a good idea to have the septic inspected before purchase. So that is not done by the home inspector. That would be done by someone who carries a sanitation license and normally includes pumping and inspection. Things have, I'll talk a little bit more about this with a simple diagram for you all to know what they look like, but things have advanced quite a bit with the use of cameras. It's allowed the inspectors to see quite a bit more. So therefore, you're going to see a great variation in price in the market. And usually the determining factor is who's using a scope camera to check piping, underground piping.
Okay, and I just think this is maybe to reiterate, do all inspection companies include the wood destroying report, insect report?
No, some others like Tiger do, but the variation, the three things you'll see in the market is those that include it. Then there's those that may offer it as an additional fee. So you'll see a home inspection fee and then an offering for an additional, could be anywhere from 75 to 100 plus for adding the termite fee, and they'll do it themselves. Or it could be they would subcontract with someone for an additional fee to come in and do that. Someone meaning a pest control company.
Okay, great. I think we're all set.
Good. And sorry if you didn't catch from Sue, chat in any questions that you have, and obviously Sue will read those to us all. Access, again, another great takeaway. We've been saying it for many, many years, doing this presentation and similar. And I know it's not easy to remember in the hustle bustle of your daily practice, but Getting to the components on the day of the inspection is important to prevent return inspections, wonderment of buyers, particularly first-time buyers. Oh, we weren't able to run the heating system because it was turned off for the summer, and things like that. So heating system fuel, seasonal houses, things like that, may not have fuel in the systems in the summer. I mentioned gas pilot lights. That goes for water heaters, fireplaces, and other appliances. Make sure those are all lit, and if there's a remote, that the remotes are available. Access to structure. Often clients listen to all of you and declutter their homes, so they end up putting it all in the garage and the basement. So makes for some obstructions to things like electric panels, furnaces, and structure. Attic entry places are probably the most important. It's difficult for us to move the occupant's clothing and such in that beautiful master bedroom closet, to set up a ladder and crawl up in the attic and such. So we're happy to move it with permission. However, in today's world, specifically with COVID and such, people don't want us touching their things any more than we want to get involved in touching their personal belongings. So crawl space entries, we've had instances of locked entries where they have to call locksmiths or break locks and such. So just remembering, if there's a crawl space, is there access to it? Is it screwed closed? Is it locked? And of course, properties with apartments, cottages, and or a multifamily type property, making sure that there's keys to get into all these apartments and such. What happens with seasonal items? We're far from winter, thankfully now, but at Tiger, we do offer one free return inspection for things that are inaccessible on the exterior due to snow. So that goes for roofs, walkways, decks, etc. It is important, though, as you move into the fall, to remember items that won't be able to be inspected, whether that's the home inspection or other items that are not able for others to see. The most important one is air conditioning. So if you take a listing between now and, let's say, October, November timeframe, make sure your clients have the air conditioning serviced and or inspected. If there's a clean receipt for service, it's a fantastic thing to show buyers in the middle of the winter. We're going to visually inspect that air conditioning system, but we cannot run them in the winter. So that in some cases leaves a question mark in the buyer's mind. And if you have a clean receipt from service within a year, it's extremely beneficial. Same goes for irrigation systems that may be winterized, pools that may be covered and winterized. If your clients are inclined to service the pool themselves, maybe that year they get a professional to do it so that you have a receipt for the winterization and the conditions. So in the standards of practice from the states, they do reference some of the limitations of a home inspection. These, when I read them to you, will seem very obvious, but these are things that come up amongst our clients as questions and things. So the destructive probing and dismantling, again, we're not going to tear apart a wall where there's a moisture stain to determine what the source of it is. We are going to probe things like the wood destroying insect inspection. We may have to open up a little piece of something that's clearly damaged framing to determine, is it rot, is it termite, is it carpenter ants? But generally we're not tearing buildings apart. The Homes on Homes TV show did us a disservice with that, and everybody expects you to tear the building down to tell them what's wrong. No disruption of property or contents. We talked about this, moving furniture, pulling a refrigerator or stove out to see what's behind it, things like that. Therefore, there may be hidden defects, areas that are unsafe, such as a small attic without a crawl path or catwalk and such, crawl space with water entry or fallen insulation throughout it. Things like that. And then, of course, we don't represent the future life expectancy. No one can tell you exactly when a component may fail, may leak, things like that. It's not a code inspection. This is an important one. We often have the father or the uncle or the contractor come along with clients and continue to reference code. First of all, the code applies to permitted work, right? So new construction or alterations to a building. So it is not possible to apply the current building code to resale of properties. We would pretty much never be able to sell houses, right? So talking about current code is not applicable to a home inspection. We may reference construction standards or an unsafe component, but certainly not going to reference the current code. It's not an insurance policy or a home warranty according to the states. We don't talk about cosmetic type conditions. And then they also mentioned in the state standards that piping outside the foundation, sewer lines, water lines, general pests, underground things like oil tanks, and then environmental conditions are not included in the home inspection standard. We will talk about some tests like water tests, radon tests, mold testing that go beyond the home inspection standards. So there is a requirement with the home inspection to provide a written report. One cannot simply go for a fee and provide verbal reporting. So it's important that these reports are delivered in a good fashion, as I said, readable fashion. I think there should be good differentiation between what's a maintenance issue and what's a significant defect. This allows, again, remember the goal here is for people to understand what they're purchasing, and perspective is key, right? We're going to find these maintenance type things on almost every property. However, these significantly deficient items are the most important. So those will show up in our report and maybe in some others on a summary. Those will be the important significantly deficient items or the action type items, something that maybe was inaccessible, so that people have that stuff kind of summarized in one document. Those may include some of the further evaluation as well. So verbal presentation throughout. If our clients are present, we can go through with them what we're seeing and what we're doing and answer any questions about these items as well throughout the process. I didn't mention, but we've covered already, the wood destroying insect report should be a separate report if someone is conducting an appropriate inspection, normally on the National Pest Control form, so it's recognized. Additionally, it's not required, but it is a good idea to have an agreement or contract. This way, both parties know, the inspector knows what they're supposed to provide. The client knows what to expect of that service. These reports are required to be maintained confidential, other than when a client gives permission to share it with perhaps their realtor or their attorney. We do provide photos along with that summary that I mentioned as well. And you'll see different formats of the reporting, but generally they should follow the standard of practice. This is a quick example of our report. We do have a checklist type writing to guide people for what is more important. The two orange shaded items there are not functioning properly. They need repairs or replacement and or further evaluation. And the others are the maintenance type items here. And then those that are functioning as intended, and those that are not inspected is the last. Then you'll have a narrative next to each to describe what the defect is, explain why it's a concern or a maintenance type item, and then direct that client, what do they need to do? Clean the gutters to prevent overflow. Consult with a contractor to determine how you're going to fix the deck railings that are loose. Another question break. Anything come in, Sue?
Yes, Joe, I have two questions. The first one, I'm not 100% sure what they were asking. It says on a second floor condo, who does the basement foundation and do they check for tunnels? So I'm not sure if, because we were talking about wood destroying insects, maybe that was in the reference to that.
So technically, according to standards of practice, you're not required to inspect the common areas of a condominium building or a co-op, same way. If we have access to it, we would look at the appropriate areas of the subject unit. So you reference, let's use your example, a second floor condo. Maybe below it is a storage shared common area with the little storage lockers or some such. And then that exterior section, if it's defined near the foundation area and such near that unit, we would look there to conduct the wood destroying insect portion of the inspection, which I think you were asking about when you said tunnels, and or general structure. So we do include accessible common areas when we can get into them in our condo inspection.
Okay, great. And I have actually another scenario question. If it's raining outside and a home has a crawl space, which is accessible, how does Tiger handle that?
I don't follow the question too well, but maybe I can make a guess. I'm
So I
thinking,
guess maybe if if it's raining outside, maybe if it was too wet, they couldn't get into it. And then they want to know like how you would handle that. And would you come back for a free inspection if you couldn't get there because of the weather?
I think that's an individual basis scenario. I can't imagine why rain would impact getting into a crawl space unless that crawl space was perhaps flooded. We do have a return inspection fee for things that are not accessible at the time of inspection. And the reason for that is our fees are based on, we've set them up or created them based on one visit to the property. And of course, including writing our report. So it might be an individual basis question there. I don't follow it. Maybe you want to chat in some clarification for the next break.
That's it for now.
Anything else, Sue?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I thought you heard me. Nope, we're all set. Thank you.
Oh, sorry, I missed that. All right, moving on to optional environmental tests. So things that may go with a home inspection. The left side are things that are often provided by home inspection companies, and those are all performed in our company. The right side requires some specialized licensing. So those are things beyond the scope of a home inspection. Asbestos, lead paint, septic systems, as we spoke about earlier, and a search for or removal of underground fuel tanks. So those are a few examples there, and we'll give you some brief information on those. Most home inspectors will provide radon air testing. We do that, as Kara mentioned, through a specific group of our team of our employees that perform radon and well water testing independent of the home inspection, meaning they'll show up at the inspection. But the advantage here is that they can, number one, get into the property with electronic keypads. They can get water samples to the lab in a timely manner, get back to the properties to receive radon devices in a timely manner as well. So we'll touch on some of these tests as well. Water tests, radon tests, that functional flow test I mentioned to you. And in addition, we have several individuals who are certified for mold assessments. We also offer a 1-hour course on radon. Some quickly say, well, I've been dealing with radon forever. What do I need to know? It's amazing how well attended the radon course continues to be. So keep an eye out for that one. But I'll go through some of this quickly and can answer specific questions. Of course, radon is a gas. The reason why we need to test with different devices is we can't smell it, taste it, or see it. The EPA considers it to be the second leading cause of lung cancer. Therefore, they have set an action level of 4.0 picocuries. Remember the key term action level. If something comes in above 4.0, the EPA recommends, 4.0 or above, the EPA recommends further action. That could be a long-term test or mitigation. Long-term test doesn't really fit very well for the real estate transaction. Therefore, you don't hear about it too often. Testing methods, they have approved devices through the EPA charcoal canisters, Alpha Track, you probably had seen historically, maybe not as much anymore. E-perm canisters could still be out in use today. These are all passive devices. So there's three here. If you can see my mouse, I don't know. And the difference here is not accuracy. So they are, if used according to EPA guidelines, they're approved devices. So the results should be accurate. However, they don't give us as much data as the continuous monitor that you see in the top corner. The continuous monitors our continuous monitors will give you an hourly reading of the radon. That will also include temperature, humidity, barometric pressure, and if there's any tampering with the device, a tamper alert. So it's nice to get the data so that you know, was there a weather event that may have skewed the results? I hate to say it, but maybe somebody opened the windows and we see some big swings in the testing. If there's a problem with testing, then there's the advantage of being able to retest it if needed. So continuous monitors, in my opinion, are very helpful in testing for real estate purposes. Should there be a high level of radon and mitigation would be installed. You'll see the systems here as examples of types of systems. One being an exterior system, very common to see. Gone is the stigma of showing a house and it has a system in it. It's, in my opinion, what I see on site is people have transferred that over to saying, oh, well, the radon's already been addressed. I'll have a test and just confirm that the system's working right. And the second system there is an internal system. So on newer construction, there's requirement for pre-piping the radon system. It makes it a lot easier to install it should there ever be a high test. So you may see an internal system when the piping is installed. Talk a little bit about well water. Radon in water is a starting point. Connecticut set their own level because there is no EPA level. I don't have the New York level listed on here. The highest amounts are found in the Northeast. In studies that were done in Connecticut, the average levels came up around 3,000 picocuries. Therefore, that's how they set that 5,000. Key takeaway, the fourth bullet there, the DPH, in Connecticut recommends a dual vial test before any remediation is installed. I say that because you may see some lower priced radon water tests being done. That's a single vial sample. Remember that another test should be done before going to remediation, whether that's done by the remediator or a second test by a service provider. Because of that, we about 10 years ago took the tack that we're always going to do a dual vial sample so that our clients get the necessary information that they need in one test. Should radon water come back high, there's two types of mitigation systems normally installed. One is granular activated carbon, and that is the canister all the way to the right, in this case unlabeled, but that's next to the softener and then the water heater, and then all the way over is the blue well pressure tank. These systems are a little less expensive. However, they do require yearly replacement. So somewhere in the $1,400 to $2,000 range, and only suitable for the lower end of the high results. Once you get into things above the 10,000 picocurie, some would say above 8,000 picocurie, you're going to get into an aeration system, less formally known as bubble up. You may have seen these. That's the black box with the aeration on it. And then to the right of it is a well pressure tank. Again, you have to repressurize the water and pump it to the house. Costs go up dramatically, as you can see. These are 99% effective. So this is what you see going in for the higher levels. The after being aerated, that air is then again vented outside and above the roof, not unlike the air systems. On well water quality sampling, most common test and kind of a basic test is the potability test. the top bullet on the coliform bacteria, as well as the nitrate nitrogen, are the two components of this that may trigger unsafe for drinking. And others are just quality of water. Maybe it is going to impact staining appliances, taste, smell, could also impact plumbing. So those things can all be corrected with treatment systems, but they do not trigger a health concern. Additionally, people go on to do some other water tests in some cases. A couple of these are related to region. So pesticides may be done in areas of farms or orchards, golf courses and things. VOCs are petroleum based. So maybe there was an underground oil tank previously on the property. Maybe there's proximity to a gas station or something like that. We see clients do those for a variety of reasons. And then arsenic and uranium has been in the media in the last year. So we saw a huge run up of requests for arsenic and uranium testing in Connecticut. The U.S. Geological issued a study, and the media got a hold of it and had some reports on that as well. So an important test to do. We see that one being done more commonly. We've created water packages as well to include that arsenic. And I talked about the flow test. So we offer an additional test for well equipment. It's a 1 hour reading of flow and pressure. We'll start inside the house by running all of the fixtures in the house to gauge pressure for about 15 minutes, and then report on conditions of well components like the wellhead, the pump type and condition, pressure tank conditions, and run the well outside with a gauge giving pressure in gallons per minute readings for the remaining 45 minutes. This is not a recovery test or a yield test. Those are different tests and more advanced. And as much as I like selling flow tests, if someone has a significant concern or there's a recognized low flow well, I would have your clients go right to getting a recovery test from a well company so that they get the proper information. That includes taking apart the wellhead, measuring how much water is in it, draining it, seeing how fast it comes back. So a little more advanced. We'll touch on mold briefly. We also, again, another comment for you, have a 1 hour mold seminar. So I'm not going to get too far into this other than acknowledging first thing we need is water, right? Moisture and or water. That could be leaks from roofs or plumbing. Could just be dampness in a home from improperly vented appliances, fans, et cetera, or poorly maintaining basement or crawl space humidity. Once that moisture combines with an organic material, household examples are wood, wallboard, meaning sheetrock. Could also be furniture, carpet, et cetera. We have mold that's created. What impacts us in our breathing is the spores that are in the air. Therefore, that's why with mold assessments, particularly in our service, there's air tests that are done. That's the first indicator that there's something going on beyond what you may see visibly in the assessment. Who needs a mold assessment? Well, historically, we were getting a lot of requests for this. We never wanted to be in the mold testing or assessing business, but many of our clients were asking. That's due to some people who are particularly sensitive, whether it's allergies or children's allergies and such. Maybe they're increased risk groups. They've got some respiratory concerns, heart concerns, et cetera. And or maybe it's just concerns with the home. We have clients who see signs of basement water entry and a portion of the basement's finished. Therefore, they'd like to have a mold assessment. So that kind of runs the spectrum. What is our mold assessment? It's a thorough analysis, different than the home inspection, focusing on mold and moisture for interior, whether it's active or potential water intrusion. We do use some equipment beyond the home inspection, such as infrared, to look for temperature anomalies or differentiation. And then we would follow up with the moisture meter on things like stains or things that come up with the infrared camera. We do include samples. There are samples included with the base fee, and then we would discuss with our clients based on conversations with them, what are their particular concerns. Sometimes it's my children to be playing in the basement or my daughter's bedroom. We want specifically tested. Those samples are then sent to the laboratory. One of the things we noticed with the industry when we started getting into this is the lab results, first of all, can be quite scary when you see spore counts of 5,000, 10,000, et cetera, with these unknown names. But also they're historically a little bit hard to read. So we took the initiative to take those results. Of course, we still provide them to our client, but part of our report is to explain what these results mean in the written cover letter that goes with it, as well as with follow-up conversations with our clients. Therefore, people can get that perspective of, okay, yes, the spore count's 5,000, but we also know that the outside spore count was 3,000. So looks like this was an introduction of something from the exterior as a brief example. Where do we see it? Well, we're seeing more and more visible mold in attic spaces. And of course, you can't confirm that it is or isn't without doing some testing. Some of these extreme examples, you might go right to a remediator on those there. Touch on some of those items beyond the scope of inspection as we look towards closing out here. It's getting close to 1 o'clock. Asbestos, of course, is a mineral component used in floor and insulation. 1978 is a good marker. Houses older than 1978 have potential to have some asbestos components. The image that you see of the piping insulation is one of the most common residential house materials. Also included in that is vermiculite attic insulation, could also be in the walls, and or flooring and ceiling materials as some examples of potential asbestos materials. Refer to the EPA. In some cases, they have some good information on their website, maybe your state Department of Health websites as well. The general recommendation is if asbestos is not going to be disturbed, or if it's not friable, meaning broken apart, releasing fibers, you don't have to remove it. Most clients are going to want it addressed, but that EPA guidance can be helpful. Lead paint, of course, you all have disclosures and such regarding this. Remember, again, the 1978, some of the houses in the 40s and 60s have some of the highest concentrations, and the device you see in the image is one of the ways to check for lead paint through multiple layers of paint as well. I don't find too many clients worried, I shouldn't say they're not worried about it, asking for testing of lead paint. And, most importantly, it's how you manage conditions in the house. Don't let the windows get to the point where they're chalking and dusting and or peeling paint and such. Hire the appropriate contractors that are certified to conduct safe lead paint practices, and or use those same practices if you're doing the work yourself. That's where most of the lead paint gets spread around the house. A homeowner or a contractor improperly scraping, using the wrong vacuum, not tarping things outside. That's where we see the lead paint getting spread. Septics, I like this image because it's helpful to know, what's that septic contractor digging around in the yard for? Well, he's looking for the tank and those two access points in order to inspect the tank. Now, there are signs when opening the tank of how the system is operating. So you have a line to the house. We're bringing all the waste out into the tank. In the tank, things break down from solids to effluent, and that effluent is then emitted into a leaching system. And this is one example of a type of leaching system that's underground out on the property. Underground fuel tanks, of course, can be unknowns, maybe still in use, sometimes left in place, sometimes removed, but there's no paperwork. Can be a concern for mortgage companies, closing attorneys and such, and guiding clients on how to handle this. So if there's history of a tank, but no documentation of it being removed, there's opportunities for tank searches as well to determine what's on the question. Break, Sue.
Yes, but going back to water in regards to uranium, and we do have a whole class that talks about uranium and arsenic, which I believe is posted up on our YouTube channel. So I do recommend that you check that out. But there was a 3-part question, basically, what information do you have about uranium and water softeners? And do the softeners adversely affect the uranium system? Is one question.
Softeners in the uranium system would depend which uranium system you used. So you may need to install a neutralizer with an anion system. I guess I'm not sure the
She mentions that her client put in a bubble up system, which cost $5,000. So, but bubble up systems aren't those used for other things
Radon.
other?
Yep. So that would be radon, not uranium. And that should not impact the softener, provided that it's, put in the right location before it. So you got clean water going into the bubble up system.
Yep. And then is uranium found in more areas in Connecticut than others?
Than other states? I don't have.
Or I think in Connecticut, like, is it found?
Yeah. So the study, again, in our other presentation, there's a map, but that U.S. geological study that was done has an entire map of Connecticut, and the results that they did from their study, it references the places that are above the guideline or below the guideline, and it's color coded. So that's a great map. Sue, if you want to get an email from this individual, we could send them some arsenic uranium information, as well as we could pull one of those maps too to send it.
Yeah. Yep, I'll do that. And then lastly, there was just a question about the mold. If mold is visible in a basement, wall, ceiling, floor, cabinets, how much can a buyer expect to pay for remediation? And then, she did ask if we have remediators on our contractors list, which I did say we do. So.
Okay. So the second part of the question is, we do have remediators in our contractor database on our website. There's a contractor database. You put in the county or location and choose the type of contractor. One of those is mold remediation, and you'll get options for service providers. As far as the cost for cleanup, there's no way that I could give you any values on that without seeing the property, and even then it's difficult. Surface cleaning is a potential if there's some, surface mold, and it's determined that it's not, in the sheetrock or the wall cavity. If the wall or ceiling, as you mentioned, has been wet, normal remediation protocols require removing the wet areas and more beyond it. I think it's 30 inches in most cases. So impossible to determine, without seeing or measuring what your costs might be. So not possible for me to answer that question. It can get expensive, but it doesn't always have to be the full removal circumstance, depending on what's going on there.
Okay, thank you, Joe.
A quick conversation on cost. How much does an inspection cost? In general, it depends on the size and age of the house. I will say, with monitoring pricing and watching the industry over the years, competitors and such, it's important for your clients to keep in mind, like any service, home inspections being the same, that what you're getting for the money is important. So comparing services, things like, is the termite included? What kind of experience does the individual have? Are you dealing with a reputable business? Or are you dealing with a, a new company without much experience, and who's just, adhering to the minimum standard as it may be. So acknowledging that better service may carry a little higher price is important. You'll see costs, average costs in the 500 to 700 range, and certainly more. And then, is the wood destroying insect included? And is, what are the prices for that? And then there's some prices there for environmental testing that we've spoken about. When you're preparing, inform your clients. Again, it's important to attend if they can. Be prepared with their questions or concerns. Acknowledge that they're going to be on site for maybe 2 on a large property up to 4 hours as well. When choosing inspectors, make sure that they're fully licensed. And we use the term fully because there are intern programs specifically in Connecticut where you can own and operate a business without having a full license. Insurance is required in New York, liability insurance, however, not errors and omissions. Connecticut does not require any insurance of home inspectors. So again, talk about pricing, reputable businesses, who's carrying insurance, whether it's errors and omissions, liability. As a listing agent, who's coming on the property if they don't have insurance, what happens if something is damaged, and then of course workers' compensation insurance. Customer service, one of the things that we pride ourselves on is our office staff. They're in the office from 8 to 8 every day. There's hours on Saturdays and Sundays as well to answer phone calls, schedule inspections, take messages for the inspectors, etc. We do offer all those environmental tests. We've spoken about the wood destroying insect inspection. One of the things we learn a lot of by doing these presentations, what used to be in your offices, but in meeting realtors and such, is what you need to conduct your business and what you're doing on a daily basis. That's allowed us to, through these experiences, adhere our service to what you and your clients need. So it's important to have these credentials and experiences. We will provide some helpful documents. One is inspection day preparation. This is great. It's columns, buyer side and seller side, to touch on the things that we spoke about today. Any final questions?
No, we're all set. Just some thank yous that came across. Great presentation.
Okay. And the raffle slide did not come up, but we're doing the raffle.
It's next. Yep.
We certainly are. I think it might be the last slide unless it's blocked.
Yeah,
but,
it was hidden. That's
okay.
So.
Well, Megan Bomberg is our raffle winner. So congratulations, Megan or Megan. And I will get that sent out to you. And thank you everybody for joining us today. Sorry, we're a little bit rushed at the end. If you have any additional questions, you're going to receive a follow-up email from me with some handouts that were mentioned, as well as a link to this presentation on video. And you can certainly reply with any questions that you may have about this presentation or Tiger Services. Hope to see you out in the field soon. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.